there. Good evening. Welcome back to the Tunnel Podcast. It's the dream team, the biggest reunion since Hansen's come back to it last year. Okay, international football is back. The Nations League is back. Scotland and England are back. And I'm delighted to say Connor and Tom are back as well. Connor, how are you doing?
Aye, not bad. Aye, it's a weird sort of feeling. It does feel like we should be talking about the Euros. It's bizarre. But of course that is behind us, and back to the basics of international football now. Nations League campaign, hoping that we can get off to a good start tonight. That would be ideal, because I think we really a win is much needed just to bring that feel-good factor back again, I think, for Scotland right now.
Listen, we'll delve into Scotland momentarily, because obviously they're kicking off in just under 45 minutes. Tom, listen, great to be back on the screen with you. How are you doing, my man? All right?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. Yeah, delighted to be back doing a video with you boys, like we were saying before we went live. It's been a while, hasn't it? But yeah, I'm not too sure I'm liking this international break so soon in the season. We all just get a little taste of league football, don't we? You know, and then it's just snatched away from us. 2 weeks international football, but there we go.
You would say that your boys are flying. Their club team's not doing so great.
Yeah.
We need a bit of respite.
Yep.
Right then, Connor. Okay, so Hampden Park, Poland the visitors. I'm going to pull up the team because it's obviously broke just before we've come on air. We'll go through it very quickly. Gun and goal. It looks like a back four. Robertson, Ralston, Hanley, and McKenna. Two holding, probably going to be Gilmore and McLean, with then McTominay, McGinn, and Christie in front, with Lyndon Dykes up top.
Yeah, aye. Some interesting ones in there, has got to be said, I think. No surprise that Dykes leads the line. I think we're all expecting that with him being back. I do think we missed him during the Euros. I think not having him there as an option was a sore one, particularly with the kind of hold-up play that Lyndon Dykes is very, very good at doing. I think Che Adams didn't have the greatest of tournaments over in Germany, but I think obviously he's pulled out the squad, so he will not factor at all in these two games. But good to see Dykes back. I would have liked to have seen him be a bit more adventurous with the midfield. Why not give a start to a Ryan Gold, for example? You get Kenny McLean in there, which, okay, fair enough. He's obviously played under Clark fairly regularly. He's done the business in the penalty shootouts a couple of years ago. But I think for me, you bring these lads into the squad, there's a bit of excitement because it feels it's a bit of freshness, which I think we've needed. And not starting any of them is disappointing, to be honest with you. Although I can understand them thinking, well, I'll go with the guys that have worked for me before. But sometimes you've got to give a chance. I suspect we'll see them come on as subs throughout the game. And I'm just delighted, particularly for Ryan Gold, that he's finally in a Scotland squad, because we said it plenty of times in the build-up to the Euros as well, that he really should have been getting a nod. So happy for him. Obviously, you've got Max Johnston in there as well, the former Kilmarnock manager Alan Johnston's son. Again, only 20-year-old, so a young lad. Who knows what kind of time he'll get, if any. But yeah, it's good to see some fresh faces in the squad, and hopefully we get to see them on the pitch as well at some stage.
Tom, you were sort of shocked actually at the lineup in terms of how much respect he's paid to the players that obviously got them to the Euros. Connor mentions there Ryan Gold. There's been a campaign for at least 3 or 4 seasons to get this man in the squad. He's finally called up, doesn't make the starting 11, and then just a player like Max Johnson there. Anthony Ralston was kind of voted the worst player at Euro 2024, but Max Johnson's just won an Austrian double. I think he won the cup and the league last year. Are you shocked we haven't seen the changes, or is it just showing you how important these fixtures are in terms of trying to get some continuity and confidence back into the players?
Yeah, it's like I was saying to you guys before we started the vid, just from a neutral kind of looking in. Yeah, I was surprised to not see a few new faces in there, obviously based on your performance at the Euros, and like you guys have just touched on some of the new names that are in the squad. Yeah, I was saying I feel a little bit disappointed for you, because the thing I always look forward to in these Nation League games is any kind of new players that have been called up into the squad, and just getting to see them pull on the shirt for the first time and see what they can do, see whether they can get an impact or not. So I just thought, you guys obviously going to watch the game shortly, and you're just hoping it's not very much same old as to what you were seeing at the Euros and the build-up games prior to that. So it's surprising, but then it's like we were saying, I still fully don't understand what you can and can't get out of the Nations League. And obviously you guys were saying that if you can win your group, you've got a guaranteed playoff spot for the World Cup. So there's for a country like Scotland, there's like you said, there's a carrot there, isn't there? And maybe that is what's led Steve Clarke to thinking, okay, first game back since the Euros against Poland. They're no mugs. They've got some top players, within their ranks, and always prove a stern test. Maybe that's why he's just he's erring on the the side of caution. But you guys will probably say that was what Clark's problem was at the Euros. He was way too cautious, and that's what scuppered you ultimately. So it's one of them. I can see reasons for, but I can see reasons against as well.
Connor, interesting subplots within our own squad. Just this last week, Scott McTominay making the move to Serie A, and then closely followed by Billy Gilmour, and now become stablemates in Naples. And then you look at the bench as well. Ben Doak, he's joined Tommy Conway under Michael Carrick at Middlesbrough as well. So there seems to be these sort of relationships within the squad. Could that be important in terms of the full campaign, not just tonight, but in terms of sort of changing the mood amongst the camp and giving the players a lift?
Yeah, of course it could be. I think building those relationships is always an important thing. I think clearly, some good moves that you highlighted there. I think McTominay going to Napoli is particularly a decent move for him. I think gives him an opportunity to go and apply his craft on the continent and show the kind of player he is. Because I think at times at Man United he probably wasn't as appreciated for what he could bring to them. I mean, how many last-minute goals did he score for them last season that actually saved their bacon in a number of games that they quite easily were on course to drop points in? And I think, with Napoli might get that. Obviously, you mentioned McDoak as well, him being there with Conway. All good stuff. And like I say, it's about a fresh impetus, because the one thing you would say about this particular squad is that it's been together for quite a while now. This squad's went through 2 tournaments. There's not been a lot of change to it. Obviously, some big things happened since the Euros. Callum McGregor hung up the international boots, which is a blow. No getting away from it. Slightly surprising, because at 31 you thought he maybe still had at least another international campaign in him going into the World Cup, which surely he'd have fancied. And listen, you never know. Sometimes these players who retire for international football can come back. When needed, Scott Brown did it when we needed him to come back. I imagine if we qualify for the World Cup, Callum McGregor will quite happily take a phone call for Steve Clarke if he feels that he's required. But it equally does open the door for these opportunities for the younger guys to come up, because that's what you've got to do. I always think as an international coach, you're balancing two things. You want to firstly make sure that you've got the strongest squad you could possibly pick that you're putting out there, but you also want to try and bring in a couple of players that you can build towards for the future, because obviously once Steve Clarke leaves, once half these players retire, you've got others that you look at and go, right, who's the next generation coming up that can take over for that? So giving these boys a bit of exposure will be a good thing, I think. And yeah, it is exciting. Of course, you need to get results. Always will tell, and I think tonight will be a good test of that. But for these lads being in and about it with these people will be great. You've Connor Barron in there as well, and despite Rangers not having the greatest start to the campaign, he's been by far the outstanding sort of shining light for that. He really has been pretty good since coming to Rangers, and is another one who has more than merited getting a call up to the national team. Who knows? He might have more down the line. There's still rumblings going on about Harvey Barnes. You know, he's still being mentioned as someone who might switch allegiance. We shall see. I hope he does, because if I'm being brutally honest, and we'll come on to them later, I don't see England ever calling Harvey Barnes up. I don't see it happening for him. And I think if he wants international football, his best bet is probably to come to Scotland, because I think I think if Harvey Barnes decides he wants to play for Scotland, he's a starter all day long, and that squad no getting away from it. So yeah, there's potentially exciting times to come down the pipeline, and I'm hoping that this will be the start of seeing something a bit different as well.
Tom, I'll come to you. Obviously, you're a man with eyes and ears in the Championship. Let's look at Conway and Doak in particular. I don't think Doak's featured yet for Middlesbrough, who've actually probably started the season a little bit indifferently. I know they won at Cardiff, but they took a real down at Stoke, didn't they, as well? I don't know if it was that a cup game. Forgive me if I'm wrong.
In the cup, yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, what's been sort of the thoughts on Tommy Conway's start on Teesside?
Yeah, I think he only started his first game in the last game. So I think prior to that, he'd come off the bench. I think he took away a penalty in one of the previous matches where he'd come off the bench. But yeah, he started in the last game. And from what I read and from all accounts, you know, it was their best performance of the season so far. They beat Cardiff comfortably, 2-0 away from home. And yeah, it's a bit deceiving, Middlesbrough, because I saw a crazy stat that they've got the best expected goals over all the English teams at this moment in time. They just obviously have been struggling a little bit to put them in the back of the net. So maybe that's obviously why Carrick's now looking to start Conway. But yeah, I think I've spoken about him in the past. You know, I think he's a top player at Championship level. You know, I remember when it come about that he was probably going to leave Bristol City in the summer. And I think I said to you, you know, I'd love to have him at West Brom. You know, he was what we were lacking at the time. And I think Middlesbrough, I know they spent quite a bit of money on him. I think it was about 4 or 5 mil.
Yeah, really big fee.
Yeah, which was a bit surprising, but I do think they've got a good player on their hands, and I think you know he's gonna score plenty of goals for them. Hasn't taken him long to get in the first team, and I fancy Borough to be up there. To be honest with you, they're I rate Carrick, and I think they've got a good squad. But like you said, Doak hasn't featured yet. I don't even think he's been on the bench, but yeah, he's obviously you know, a very exciting talent that gets talked highly of. You know, obviously he was in the. Did he go in the squad with you guys in the end? I remember us talking about him. Yeah, he obviously was part of the squad that went to the Euros. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he does. I think the Championship's, you know, a cracking league for these kind of these youngsters. You know, to see, you know, let them off the leash a little bit. You know, compete at a really competitive level and see what they're all about. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he does at Borough.
Just sticking with you then, because you mentioned Poland earlier. Now, they had a similar Euro campaign to Scotland. I think they lost to Holland, lost to Austria, who were probably dark horses, and then they got that draw in the last game against France. You know, are they in an international side maybe in a bit of a transition?
I think so, yeah. You know, they always talk about golden generation of players, don't they? And, you know, Poland probably, if you kind of went back, I don't know, 3 or 4 seasons, you know, when kind of Lewandowski was just absolutely on fire. And, you know, they had a few other guys within that team who, you know, were playing for some of the top teams across Europe. I forget the lad's name at Borussia Dortmund, the winger. And, you know, they had some quality players. But, yeah, those guys have obviously got older and older, you know, and they've still been featuring quite prominently, haven't they? They don't seem to have many of these stars kind of coming in and taking their space. You know, I'd be lying if I looked at that Poland team, there's probably going to be a majority of players on there that, you know, I've not heard of. You know, I couldn't tell you where they're playing, but I think that kind of proves the point I'm making in that, you know, if you went back kind of 3 or 4 years, you would have recognised, you know, a lot of the names on that Poland starting 11, but now, you know, that's not so much the case. So, yeah, Lewandowski, he's still their kind of key man, but he's getting on now, isn't he? He wasn't really effective, was he, in the Euros in the last tournament, and he's not playing as much for Barcelona, I don't believe. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think it's probably a good time for you guys to be playing him, really. At home, I think it's good opportunity to get off to a winning start.
Connor, just on that then, is there pressure on Steve Clarke? He's talked about, slowly trying to find a new formula. There's a slight change of shape tonight in that we go to a back four instead of that three or a five, whatever you want to call it. Maybe that's due to, lack of personnel. Is there pressure on him? And does there have to be some sort of expectation, management in terms of it's a really tough group we've got? We play Portugal at the weekend and we've got Croatia to come as well.
There is pressure on him. Yep. I mean, it's a tough group, as you say there. Of course, it is. Croatia, Portugal, and Poland. But that's that you want to play these teams though. This is the thing. I think us getting promoted into Group League A, I think it is, in the Nations League, was a real positive thing, because the one thing that we've maybe not had so much of over the last couple of years, particularly when we've been getting into these the Euros campaigns, is that we've not played many of the tough teams, the big boys going into it. We've had middle of the road teams that we've played, and obviously in Nations League Group B, you don't tend to get outstanding sides. I know we've had, the likes of Slovenia and stuff like that, Slovakia, which aren't bad teams, but, they're teams that are more kind of on a par with us than necessarily better. And I think it always helps because you're getting that opportunity to raise your game. And I think that's the hope. I mean, the pressure in Steve Clarke's simple for me. A lot of people felt after the Euros that it might have been time to change it, for him to step away, which is understandable because he's taken us to 2 tournaments. Both tournaments have had the exact same outcome. We've left with a point. So there's not been any improvement, really. Okay, results-wise in that tournament, apart from the Germany game, we didn't get swept aside, which in the prior Euros, we got hammered by the Czechs and Croatia. This time round, we get sucker punched by Hungary. Obviously, we'd scored as it worked out in the end up. If we had managed to score a goal in that game and win it, we would have got through. The 4 points would have been enough. Unfortunately, it didn't go that way. But the pressure now is, it's great saying, well, I'm going to get a Europe, I'm going to take us through to try and get to the World Cup, and then maybe see what happens from there. He'll only get time to see that all the way through if we're getting decent enough results. If he keeps losing games, then we've seen it before, Robert, that feeling of apathy will creep back in again amongst the team's supporters, and you don't want that because it's difficult. You see empty stands at Hampden and stuff like that, and during international games, we've seen all of that during Craig Levine's tenure, for example, when things were really, really poor. Gordon Strachan done a fair job to bring that back again, and Clark's took it further. So, yeah, he's got to get it. And I think, as you say, the fact he is changing it up a little bit tonight, I think is a good sign, because I think one of the frustrations has been a feeling that a lot of people think we're too negative, we're too defensively minded. You can't play every game 5 at the back and trying to be, rigid and we'll go forward when we can. You need to get after these games, see, especially at home. The crowd at Hampden tonight will be looking for the team to get after it, get at. This Poland side, you guys have touched on it, but some of the players they've got in there, they aren't the greatest team ever. They've had a tough Euros there. Lewandowski's not getting any. I mean, this will be, let's be honest, this will be Lewandowski's last campaign. If Poland get to the World Cup, it'll be the last tournament for him, because by that time he'll be 38. He'll not be playing in the Euros at 40 really. So it is an opportunity that you've got to take. I did point out to you, of course, beforehand, the record against Poland in Glasgow is not good for us. We've actually never beaten them in Glasgow in 5 attempts, 3 draws, 2 defeats. One of them I remember very vividly. But yeah, listen, why not? Go for it. Take the shackles off. Go and show what we've got, because we've got capable players in there. In my estimation, if you look at us as a squad, I think we actually are a stronger squad than Poland, if I'm being honest with you, throughout. Whereas Poland have got a couple of decent players. Bednarek, obviously, good player for Southampton, and Lewandowski. But apart from those two, we are, I think, a better squad.
Listen, I think just looking at the team, there used to be just a lot more quality in terms of being on the ball than there was with the Euros. So, okay, we'll park Scotland there for a moment. We'll move over to our English counterparts. Tom, obviously, Lee Carsley in on an interim basis, and he really has shaken up the squad. With the selections, calling up a lot of guys that he's familiar with from his time in the 21s. What did you make of the squad announcement and the surprise inclusions?
Yeah, look, I'll start off with saying that when the news was announced that Carsley was coming in as interim boss. I was probably a little bit critical. It does feel a bit like Southgate round 2 to me, and I might have kind of aired those views on social media more times than once. But yeah, look, you've got to give the guy. You've got to give him a clean slate, haven't you, and see what he can do. And look, I'll be when the squad was announced, I was quite pleasantly surprised to see that. Yeah, he's brought a few players in. There's a couple in there that I don't think many would have guessed that he was going to call up. And yeah, there's a lot of young players in that squad, isn't there? He's obviously brought some players in who he's known well from his time with the under-21s, Morgan Gibbs-White, Gomez, which is probably the biggest surprise. That was the biggest surprise for me anyway, because, I couldn't even tell you where he's playing. Obviously I know that he was at Manchester United and he had all these injuries, but then I didn't know he was at Lille, and I didn't know he was, performing as well as he, what I've read since, as well as he was from, helping him into a Champions League spot. So, yeah, just kind of touching on what I said earlier, I think, especially with the guys that have dropped out the squad since as well. So I think it's Foden, Palmer, and Watkins have dropped out the squad. I think the England fans are going to see a few new faces in there, guys who've never played for England before. So yeah, I'm quite looking forward to the game Saturday, and seeing how a couple of these guys get on.
Connor, do you think that's a point that you made earlier about Group B being against sort of slightly lesser sides? It gives Lee Carsley a chance to blood new players, and two, a chance to almost stamp his authority on this England side, and maybe make a fist for the job. Because if you look at the blueprint of Gareth Southgate, I think it was 8 years in the job. Obviously, he was under-21 manager before that. Carsley's of that ilk. He's won trophies for the 21s. He knows that he's almost done his scouting, if you would like, at that at that level. He knows what's coming through. Could you see the FA leaning towards that? Should he get the right results in this Nation League?
I'd be listening with the FA. You never know, to be honest with you. I think I like Tom was surprised that they went down the route of Carsley interim manager. I don't know. Maybe Tom can shed light on it. I don't know what the thinking is. It's not like they had to put an interim manager in. They had time there to go and bring someone in, and I can't figure out why they haven't. My concern personally as a Newcastle man is I am of the belief that I think they want Eddie Howe, and I think what they're waiting for, the reason they've done it this way, is twofold. One, if Carsley does well, then they can do the whole Southgate 2.0 thing, which will be great for whoever the new under-21 manager is, because he's guaranteed to replace Carsley. But also, they want to see how this early part of the campaign plays out for Eddie Howe at Newcastle. And if he comes under a bit of pressure, can they then slide in and say, come on over to England? Because it's the only reason you would do that for me, that the guy you want is in a job just now and you don't want to pay over the odds and compensation fees. But it does give Carsley that chance. I think, there are a lot of similarities. He's brought in the lads he knows for under-21s, just as Southgate did. And I think that's great. I mean, listen, it's not an easy game they've got on Saturday. They should beat Ireland, but let's not kid ourselves on here. John O'Shea obviously has took over at the Republic, and he's done a half decent job of steadying the ship. He's managed to get them. I think they bet Hungary just before the Euros 2-1. They got a draw in Dublin against Belgium. I think those two games alone should tell England that they can't, lie down on this one and think they'll roll them over, because Ireland could be tricky. It's, for me, interesting. Again, England are in a group they should take care of, and they should get themselves back into the A-League if they take it seriously. Whether they do, who knows? But I think, Carsley's got an opportunity here to stamp his authority. I'll be interested actually to see how they approach the game. Will they actually? Because Southgate's always been criticised for being a bit too negative, a bit sort of reserved. I wonder if Carsley will take the shackles off and he'll really let them go for it, because that's where England's strengths lie for me.
Well, just to let you know, there's been a bit of an update in terms of the Ireland manager's job. They've brought in a new permanent. John O'Shea's gone back to assistant for interim. I think it's a Norwegian, Heimar Hallgrimsson. Not familiar with his body of work as a player, but he's come in and he'll be in the dugout tomorrow night at the Aviva. Saturday night at the Aviva, should I say. Tom, just on Connor's point then about taking the shackles off, Jack Grealish is back in. It was a big story that he didn't obviously make the Euro squad. You mentioned Morgan Gibbs-White. Now, obviously him and Gomez are going to give glowing recommendations to Lee Carsley, because he's brought them in for their first sample of the big squad. However, they seem to be playing with a smile on their face. And as I say, it's about, if you're going to put these guys in, it's about getting the right players around them and getting that blend right.
Yeah, I just hope, because one criticism I always had of Southgate was that he'd bring these guys into the squad, but then he'd just never really give them an opportunity. It was almost as if he was forced sometimes. It felt like he was forced sometimes by the press and by fans to call up some of these guys because they were performing so well for the Premier League. And then it felt like, well, he called them up. So, he could always say, well, I called them up and they were in the squad and they were on the bench. But I never felt he fully gave some of these guys, enough time on the pitch to, show what they can do and make an impact. So, yeah, I like I said, I was joking, at the start about league football coming back and we all get a little taste, and then these internationals start, and I'd say the vast majority of football fans out there are probably not too happy about it. So the thing you look forward to the most is whether there's going to be some new players called up, and then whether they're going to get a game and some minutes to see what they can do. So that's what I'm looking forward to the most. I think Carsley will, to be honest with you. I think Connor was spot on. I think Carsley's he's in a bit of a win-win situation, to be honest
100%.
with you. Because, 100%.
He's still happy and relaxed because he knows what he does. He's okay.
Yeah, 100%. He's done a fantastic job with the under-21, so he's got that to fall back on. But I think with England, I know we obviously got to the final, but there was a lot of trying to think of the word around Southgate and the fan base. A lot of the fans felt it was time for Southgate to go, wasn't it? And and one thing I've been reading as well about Carsley is that he does like to play quite attacking, easy on the eye football. I can't say I've seen too many of the under-21 matches, but they've obviously got a great record and got some exciting players in there. So I'm intrigued. That's probably the best one. I'm intrigued to see, first and foremost, what team he goes with on Saturday, and I'm hoping I'm not expecting him to completely overhaul the.
We've lost his sound there, haven't we? Can you hear him, Connor?
He's in full flow there as well, but he's gone. The thing is as well, on Carsley, well, Tom Sutton said it. Oh, you saw me, Tom? I
can't hear him.
I was just going to say this game is it's sort of weirdly ideal for him, because of course Lee Carsley represented the Republic of Ireland as a player at international level. So the fact his first game in interim charge takes him to Dublin is interesting. Have we got Tom?
Am I back?
Oh yeah, he's back. I was just going to say, is that if you hit the nail on the head there actually in the sense that by bringing in these players that played at the under-21s, they know his style of play, they know his ideas. Is it easier for him then, or quicker way of implementing that with guys that already know how he plays? If he's only going to have it for a short window.
Yeah. Well, it'd be a bit daft, wouldn't it, for him to not bring some of these guys in, because, like you say, they've worked with him. They know how he likes to play the game, his tactic, his approach, etc. So I'd be very surprised to see it not at least not a couple of them get a start, and him go with all the guys Southgate was going with. It's like I said, I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to see what he goes with Saturday. I'm looking forward to it. There's not much more to say other than that. I don't think it's odd because Connor touched on, the situation. I think the FA have been a bit crafty, really. I think he's right in that. They brought Carsley in because let's see what he can do. He might do really well. The fans might get on board with it, and then that's a nice little maneuver into the permanent role, isn't it? But I personally still believe it needs someone bigger with more experience, a bigger name to come in. And then it begs the question then as to why they've not just gone and done that to give that person the most amount of time working with the players, and implementing his style and getting rid of who he doesn't want and bringing in who he does, etc. It seems a little bit of a risk, I think, from the FA, and it just leads me to believe what I was saying when it was announced that he'll get the job, Carlsey. I'll make a bet with you now. I'll bet you both a couple of pints that he will end up getting the job because, we'll put in a couple of decent performances against the likes of Finland and Republic of Ireland and, Vatican City and Luxembourg and some of these guys. And, the FA will start rubbing their hands together and it will just be Southgate all over again. I guarantee it. That's what's going to happen because I don't see why, if they weren't really keen on giving Carsley the job, they just didn't go and get who they wanted to get. They either did and they weren't available, or they got priced out, or whatever. But I think Carsley will end up with the permanent job.
I mean, that to me would be a damning indictment in the FA. Because when I think about it, right, I'm looking back over maybe the last 14 years since Fabio Capello left England, the list of managers they've had in isn't the most inspiring. When you look at the teams they've had in, is probably a part of the reason why England have not won anything when they should have done, if we're being brutally honest. They've had, of course, Roy Hodgson, who, listen, decent club manager, Roy the Rovers and all the rest of it back in the day. Absolutely, and full respect to the man, even what he done at Palace as well, came into them last year, I think, for a bit to steady the ship. Quite right, he deserved his opportunity, but again, it wasn't the most inspiring appointment from an ambition standpoint. He goes, they bring in Sam Allardyce, and that whole debacle, that lasted about 5 minutes. And then Southgate, who incredibly, before they got Sam Allardyce, had turned him down before, didn't want the job, eventually takes it. And again, I get it. You go with a young up-and-coming manager thinking, we'll give him a shot. Why not? Takes him to two finals. Fair enough. But he loses both. One of them in his own backyard against a bang average Italy team he should have beat. And you look at it and you go, again, every time he came up against a good side like a Spain or a France, he would lose. And the idea that you would just go, well, let's just go with Carsley is because England are such a good squad. They've got great players there. Why wouldn't a decent name manager want to come in and take that job?
I know. What are you doing to me, man? I was in a good mood before I come on here, Now you're just putting me on a...
Come away from the manager.
I know. England manager, history, man, and our failings once again. I know. Come on, Connor, man.
No, I'm not right in saying no Kyle Walker in the squad. Kieran Trippier's retired from international football. I think it's the young boy
Rico Lewis, isn't it? Who's been brought in, which fully deserved. He's been brilliant, hasn't he, for City so far this season? So he's another one.
Tino Livramento.
I was going to ask Connor about Can you hear me? Have I gone again? Or
no, we can hear you, mate. Fire away.
I was going to ask Connor about Livramento because has he been playing left back for Newcastle? Because he's he's natural right back, isn't he? But has he been playing left back for Newcastle in the league so far? Has he?
Yeah, he's a left back for us. He's he since the start of the season has basically took Trippier's spot in the team. Trippier's actually been the backup to him, which has been an interesting one. Seems to have worked. He's been good in the games he's played. He has been really good for us, obviously, even though we've had some sticky performances. But I think he's more than merited getting a shot in the England team, and I think he'll do a real good job. And the fact that, as you say, naturally a right back, proving right now he's not got a problem as a left back. He played there last season for us as well when he got his game time, and that a kind of play like that I think is important. A bit of utility player, you can switch around.
I think Gordon as well. Touching on the players that Carsley's worked with previously, obviously Gordon did fantastically well for him with the under-21s and everything that happened with Gordon over the summer. I think he'll be absolutely buzzing at the fact that Carsley's got the gig, because I think he will. I'll be surprised if he doesn't start, to be honest with you. I fancy Gordon to get a start on Saturday against Ireland. So, look, I don't want to come across too cynical. I think the whole manager thing is just a bit of a mess, if I'm honest with you. Because the other thing I just don't quite understand is, why have they not come out and said, well, he's going to have X amount of games, and within this time we're going to make our appointment. It's all just a bit kind of hush at the minute, isn't it? As to, well, we've brought him in. There's no kind of set time scale, and there's been no kind of any other talk about a permanent. And they haven't even said, with Carlsey either, like if he does well and he performs well and he does a good job, he's got a chance of getting the gig full time. They've just brought him in. They've said he's coming in interim basis, and that's it. It's kind of been lip sealed, hasn't it? So, put all that stuff to one side. The kind of permanent manager stuff. I'll just go back to what I was kind of saying earlier. I think, I'm excited to just see, one, how Carsley does, because he's had a great record with the under-21s. He's brought some of those guys obviously into his new squad, mixed things up straight away. So it's like I said, it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it.
You must have heard that famous Lee Carsley story that David Moyes tells. When Real Madrid bought Tommy Gravesen, and they think they bought the wrong player, because obviously they were two playing in the centre midfield, the two wee baldy guys, and Lee Carsley was having the season of his life. And they end up with Gravesen, he ends up just going over there and fighting with Robinho. So David Moyes always says, I think they bought the wrong player. I think they were meant to be in for Carsley and ended up with Gravesen. Okay, listen, we'll rush for time. So obviously the Scotland game kicks off in 5 minutes. I just want to finish off on a nice wee start there. I've just been sent this. So Scotland currently have the best win ratio of any nation in the UEFA Nations League. Scotland have played 16 matches to date in the competitions. It started in 2018. 10 out of the 16 fixtures won, means a win record of 62.5%. Connor, long may that continue. Starting tonight against the Poles, hopefully blows apart your start as well. Listen, if a couple of people have been watching during as well, so if you have been watching, like, subscribe, leave us a comment, do something so we can sort of build the podcast and take your feedback on board. Thanks for joining us, Connor, as always, Tom, as always. And as I say, we will see you all on the other side. Thanks very much.